Welcome to Evangelicalish, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of the American evangelical church, deconstruction, faith, and God's love through it all. Join us for these episodes live on our Evangelicalish YouTube page on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, and 6 o'clock Pacific. Let's journey together.
Welcome into the Evangelicalish podcast. It is so good to see everyone. I'm Jeremy.
I'm April.
And I'm Paul.
And we did that without even...
We did that so well.
Yeah, we did not fuck up the opening.
We did not fuck up the opening. It's so good.
Oh, hey, explicit already.
Wow. Yeah, well, you know, gotta get it right out of the gate. I'm starting to wonder if the comments are actually filtering or not, because this is very weird.
We don't have any commenters here.
Yeah, that's strange. Okay. Anyway, it's good to see everybody. Hope that everybody is doing well this evening. And it is hello. It is so
April
good
commented
to be back on the screen.
There's
there
right.
we go. So good to be back on the screen. And listen, Nashville was absolutely amazing. It was 1000% incredible. So for everybody who came and was a part of that, who helped make that happen, we are so stinking thankful for each and every single one of you. Ish went down in Nashville.
Went down.
Yeah. And so
I do miss seeing you guys face to face, though. Now I got spoiled.
I know. Yes. We finally saw each other's bottom halves of our bodies. That sounded weirder than I meant to, but we
with clothing on.
With clothes on.
Clothing on.
To clarify.
Listen, it was.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Huge shout out! Huge shout out to the Lipstick Lounge. It was an incredible venue. By the way, if you are in the Nashville area, ever traveling or live in that area, go in there, get a really good drink. The bartenders are absolutely top notch, and get a burger. Those burgers were absolutely killer. So not only a great place to hang out and to support a lesbian-owned business, lesbian-owned bar, one of the 25 in the country, 22 in the country, something like that.
I think they said.
Yeah. So 20 something, but anyway, so a great way to support that business, and then also it's just it's a really good time. It's a great venue.
They had amazing karaoke and a surprising amount of CCM to choose from.
Yes.
So if you want to heal some of that religious trauma, try singing Breakfast by the Newsboys in a gay bar.
It was really good.
I did that.
It was really good. And I'm disappointed I didn't think of doing a CCM song. I just went to Old Faithful and
that totally makes sense though. I was the odd one. And the funny thing is, I think half the people by the time I sang were not there for our show, and they were probably so confused at what was happening.
Michelle was like, a really good drink or two or three. Listen, Michelle, old fashions just kept coming. Yeah. And I don't know where I asked for one, but other than that, the rest of them just showed up, and I didn't want to disappoint anybody. So I'm really fun to hang out.
By the way, Rainy Days Studio, they're saying we should have another one sometime. Stay tuned. Get on our newsletter list.
Which takes me to the next thing. And actually, if you really want to be influential in that conversation, you want to ask us about that and kind of get some of the behind the scenes, go to evangelicalish.com, join the Ish community. It's like a Patreon kind of deal. And as a matter of fact, next Wednesday, we do not have a public show, but there is an episode of Evangelicalish that will be happening, and it is going to be for community members only.
Private.
On Zoom. Yeah. So yes, so become an end of days villain, and we would absolutely love for you to join the Ish community, and you can 100% come and be a part of those things and have really great conversation on Zoom with us. And there's some other.
If I can elaborate on that. So go to evangelicalish.com, and you have the option to sign up at the false prophet level, the beast level, or the antichrist level. Those are different levels of subscription with different amounts of money. And you have to be at beast level or higher to join us in our special exclusive Zoom room discussion time next Wednesday.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And for those of you who have not listened for a long time, the beast, the false prophet, and the antichrist is an actual comment we have received about the three of us. So
yeah, so
we're really playing into that.
And
yeah, we love
that
it.
remark.
Yeah, we resemble that remark. And then last bit of housekeeping, but never least, we would love for you to go buy some merch. We now have Evangelicalish merch available on evangelicalish.com. Just click the merch-ish tab and it'll take you here. And for those of you who showed up to Nashville, you know what that above average podcast t-shirt is about. And then we've also got the crop top hoodie because listen, when I designed that, I was like, what is the best way to push back against purity culture and also give a big middle finger to Christian nationalism? So I made a crop top hoodie
that says Duck Christian Nationalism.
Christian nationalism. You can get an insulated-ish tumbler. And then we also have just the regular logo shirt, the shirt-ish. So anyway,
I don't think I can pull off the crop top hoodie. Sorry.
You totally could. Don't sell yourself short.
You could. But go to evangelicalish.com, click that merch-ish tab and just grab yourself some ish merch.
Yes.
Ish merch.
Okay. I don't know why I went out of focus. That bothers me. Okay. So without further ado, we do have an amazing guest tonight who I met in person before I ever met Paul or Jeremy. Ooh, I know. So Kristina Hart, she is a writer and comedian. If you are in deconstruction spaces or evangelical spaces on Twitter or Instagram, she is all over that and she's hilarious. So you probably already know who she is. She's also a counselor. That's her day job. And she forgets that she is. That's what she said earlier. Anyway, yes. So Kristina, welcome to Evangelicalish.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're super excited. If some of y'all might remember, I did a video a while back with Kristina. We both were wearing blonde wigs and we were making fun of
Cherie.
Yes, she was Cherie, and we were making fun of all the evangelicals that were mad at Discovery Plus for going after Hillsong. So mad.
So mad. Spiritual warfare.
Yes. So Kristina, she also used to write a blog called the DTR blog. If y'all remember what DTR meant.
Define the relationship. Yes.
Yeah. I had a few of those in my day.
Yep. So, and she doesn't write that anymore, right? You don't write that anymore.
No, it's still archived and up just to remind myself of my dainty little old life. But or it's like a natural deconstruction kind of blog at this point because you can see my process.
Nice.
But yeah, it's still up there though.
Yeah, about Christian dating and recently, unfortunately, you got denied, but you also were trying to sneak into the Right Stuff dating app. And
you got kicked out? They didn't take you?
No, so I was trying to write the answers that I was supposed to write, except for a few. So there were some, and it was like, what, about me. And I was like, my favorite documentary is What is a Woman by a hero of the faith, Matt Walsh. And they were like, the best part about America, these are like preset prompts. And I was like, immigrants. I was like, they're not gonna like that.
Yeah, that one was probably what gave it away.
Probably what they were like, you know what? No. I'm like, fine.
Somebody's asking about the shirt, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, show everyone your shirt.
Yeah. I'm a love your neighbor Christian, not a storm the Capitol kind. It's from a joke with a friend when we were talking about what to put on our dating profiles. I said, just putting this, you'll get a lot of great comments from the right people.
But maybe not the right.
Maybe not the
people.
Right, but the right.
But you were not
that's
the right
too liberal. I said that's too liberal. That's funny.
And we'll in the show notes we'll put a link to that t-shirt if you want to buy it because it is a pretty great shirt, not gonna lie. So Kristina, tell us a little bit because you were writing the DTR blog up until COVID.
I wrote it. My last one was about Sean Foyt and the rally he tried to do in downtown LA when I was living there. So that was my last blog post. It's still my last one.
You were like, I'm done. Sean Foyt killed it.
I'm out. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I I started off writing it 5 years ago, not just with dating, but it was trendy. It was define the relationship with God, yourself, and others through stories of faith, dating, mental health, and comedy. So I wrote about like grief, like because my mom had passed away, and like just my process, like where's God, blah blah blah. I wrote about dating, which that became like a comedy thing that I didn't plan. It just kind of happened. And then I started with memes, and then I write in more about the establishment and the institution and the things that I was observing. The more that I was involved in that world, or like kind of getting more popular in that world, I started observing, and then I was like, I have to say something, and I did, and then that was my process.
Nice. So actually, I think I'm pretty sure I read the DTR blog at one point. So
Did you?
like
Oh my
pre
God.
us being
April a joy.
April and Joy. Yeah. Look at me. I mean, I used to Christian date too. Okay.
I know you did. You had good stories.
Don't we all? Don't we all though? So tell us a little bit about your deconstruction journey, which I think will lead in nicely because we also want to talk about what's going on in Iran. And you are Persian.
I am.
Which a lot of people may not know what that is because we're white Americans. So explain that.
Yeah. No, people for the first time, they've been following me for 5 years, and they're probably just like, oh my gosh, you're Persian, because I didn't talk about it a lot for a multitude of reasons. Both of my parents
isn't Persia the where humanity was born, right? Isn't it where Adam and Eve, like Euphrates River and all of that
was close to there. Jesus probably looked more like me than you.
Fair.
No, not
yeah. So my parents were both born in Iran. My mom passed away 10 years ago, but my dad is Armenian Iranian. Still born in Iran. They speak Farsi. That's the language. We say Persian because it's easier and lighter as a term for Americans. So we feel like you can associate it with carpets and cats. And so that's why we say Persian, to be honest. But if you see, this is the first time that I feel like people are associating Iran with like something positive that I have ever seen my entire life. In regards
can I interrupt real quick and just say, for some of my relatives in like southern Missouri, Iran is Iran. Just so you know, Iran is Iran. They're the same thing.
Yeah, there's also that. Yeah, but you can say it however you want. It's no problem at all. Iranian. I made a joke on my show last week. I was like, when I tell people I'm Persian, I get a multitude of reactions. One is like, oh, what happened in Afghanistan was really terrible. I'm like, yes, it was for Afghanis. An entirely different nation. Bless their hearts, but or they'll be like, Aladdin's my favorite movie, and I'm like, yes,
cool.
My carpets fly as well. Yeah. So but I've lived that my whole life. It's easier in Los Angeles because there's a lot of Iranians, a lot of Persians, but in the church it was different. It was definitely different. And I feel like I whitewashed myself. My mom, she was Muslim, converted to Protestantism. She became Protestant through Benny Hinn televangelism.
Oh, wow.
So I used to go to Benny Hinn crusades as a young child. And so I had many facets to like who I was. And that has continued into today. And so for the deconstruction side of things, I have always been liberal. I have always been leaning more Democrat. I would say that there was a period of time that I didn't know what I was supposed to believe in regards to gay marriage and submission and things like that. But outside of church, I went to a very liberal school. I went to UC Santa Barbara because I'm the daughter of an immigrant. So education is like their highest priority. And now I'm a comedian, so I don't know how that works, but I'm sure they're proud. These comments are funny. They got their rugs confused. So, so I think in church, it I was never not white, if that makes sense. And if I was ISIS, or I was associated with very negative, derogatory, racist things that I didn't want to be associated with, because they were not who I am, and they're not. Persians are absolutely not. They're the most loving, kind, culturally warm. As you can see now with the women, they just want the same things that you or I want, and they're willing to speak out and stand out because they've experienced oppression their entire lives. Yeah. So in deconstruction, I just saw everything that was going on in regards to Christian nationalism, Trump, like the worship of Trump. And I was like entirely unimpressed. And so I was able to speak about it fairly easily, but I lost a lot of people because I was still in that dainty world with pastors following me who then unfollowed me just because I was like, I'm a Christian and I don't like Trump. Like I literally did a TikTok about that. And I talked about Sean Foyd and just the worship of celebrity culture.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't really use the term deconstruction because I feel like I never felt like I fit in almost. But there are elements that I did deconstruct in regards to the specific beliefs, but it wasn't really that hard for me. I think it was easier for me than perhaps white evangelicals. And I still think that. I think that I maybe have moved on in an like I see Christian nationalism and I see a larger problem of religious extremism across the globe. And so for me, the focal is a lot larger than America's problem. And not to say that, not to downplay anything, because I think I, rant on Marjorie Taylor Greene, Ted Cruz all day. But I, as an Iranian American, have a different perspective than my white friends in evangelicalism that just left 2 years ago, or
Yeah.
But so I'm so grateful for this space to talk about it, because I told April, I have never been asked to speak about what it's like being an Iranian American Christian. Like I was an Iranian American evangelical, which there are quite a few of us scattered everywhere, but we just hide, we go under the radar. And so now I obviously speak to more progressive things. I have, I love kind of playing, I know what to joke about comedically, like make fun of, but it's not just the Christian nationalism. I try to do as a whole, like my perspectives as a not white, liberal Christian, not a storm the Capitol person,
right?
I guess.
Yeah. I think that's such a fair point that you didn't have to deconstruct as much as a lot of us white evangelicals, because you probably, like as you said, experienced being marginalized and racism, so you already kind of had your eyes open to that, where for a lot of us it was like, oh shoot, we've been racist.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely learned a lot during a lot of protests and everything with my friends. Like I learned a significant amount in the last few years. But yes, the right-wing extremists, like in Iran, the women and the youth and the students, they're all protesting. So to show like you don't want what we have been raised in, because that is where globally things are leading in a lot of countries. Right. Religious extremism, Christian nationalism, the Russian-Ukraine war, and so it's why it's also very hopeful, because now you see a group of one of the most oppressed people groups being like, we are fucking done, and we're 13 years old and we've been living this our whole lives, and they're risking their lives, and they just want to know other people care, and that's all I want.
Was there any kind of, I think about, you mentioned that there's not a lot of folks in the evangelical Iranian space, right? Like that's a very small subsect, I guess. Did you experience, and this may seem like a weird question, but did you experience any negative pushback or negative exchanges after some of the things came out. Like I think about like Pastor Saeed, right?
Yeah.
After that whole situation kind of went down, and it came out that he was abusive and very misogynistic in his relationship, and is now since divorced.
For those who don't know, can you explain briefly?
Yeah. So Pastor Saeed was a pastor that moved to the United States from Iran. He rose to prominence because he got arrested by the Iranian government and was imprisoned, and there was a large outcry from evangelicals for him to be released.
Franklin Graham.
Yeah. And
he capitalized on that sucker, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
he did.
They were
Plus
making
his
cash.
ex-wife.
Yeah. And so
on our fear of dark-skinned people, and
yes,
particularly Iranians.
And so and then to go along with that, I will say, if you want some really great in-depth context, you can check out the Royce report with Julie Royce. She actually spoke to his ex-wife and got an incredible perspective and story, and so there's that for a resource. But that was a big deal. And then once he was released later on down the road, which he had been abusing his wife and his children for years, but later on, after all of that, it was discovered publicly, even though we had found out Franklin Graham and several others knew about it behind the scenes. But all of that lead up to ask this, like, did that cause even further issues on the evangelical Iranian sect of people?
Sure. No, because there are so few of us in these non-denominational spaces. So probably I would say the most are in Los Angeles, or there's a lot in Canada, or even Dallas or Houston. But his wife or ex-wife, I would say that's an example of how evangelicalism just pushes Christian, like everyone, to become their way, and the heroes are the ones that are their form of Christianity, regardless if they're abusive, regardless. And in Iranian culture, males dominance and women's submissiveness is part of the culture for a long time. In the prior to 79, women could wear what they wanted. Women could, you would see them wearing jeans, but you still couldn't speak out. Like, there's still dominance in the sense that it's male supremacy. So the submission aspect is there, which is what Franklin Graham loves. He loved that, like, for him. So she is really, like, I respect her so much because what she did to speak out was so hard. So I think she's more of an example of Iranian Christians than he is.
Yeah. Yes.
And he's an example of the oppression that happens.
He is, and coincidentally, not only is he a prime example of the oppression happening in places like Iran, but he is also a very prime example of the oppression that happens in the American evangelical church.
Absolutely.
And those things, like, the thing that they're the most scared of is the thing they are. And that's,
exactly. And that's the crossover. And that's where the deconstruction, where this all crosses over to, it's an extremely violent regime, and they're being killed for just saying that they want to be, that they're gay, or that they want to play cards as a woman. Like, my grandmother was whipped 75 times for playing cards in her house. And they whipped her till she passed out. And then my family brought her to the US. So that's an insane reality under a regime like that. But at the same time, their oppression is oppression. So, like, here, what people are seeing is the rise of manipulation of people's minds and brainwashing, and that becoming something that infuses this oppressive culture. And we don't want that. So that's why we're all speaking out on it.
You said your mom whitewashed your heritage.
Yeah.
Were you aware of that? Were you too young? And how does that impact you today, having to assimilate to white Western European culture?
My mom, she did the best she could with what she knew. She was from a very oppressive place, and so she felt free in evangelicalism because she could dance and sing and do this in church, and she was treated like she was white. So for her, that was freedom, and I think that is what the perception of freedom was for a lot of people, and still continues to be. And we're now in a movement where people are realizing that is not the perception of freedom, that is the perception of manipulation and supremacy. So she also like never went back. I went, and she was a very proud American. Like I went with her to get her citizenship. I was a kid, and we are free here. We can do things that she could never do. So I think that the whitewashing was like all they knew, that generation especially. It felt safe, like you're safer, which you were.
Right.
My friends, even like all went to UCSB, and I'd be like, I'm Persian. And the jokes would just, from certain people, would just come like, oh, ISIS is here, like just jokes. And that was just accepted. Like, I didn't know that wasn't okay. I didn't feel okay, but I didn't know that wasn't okay. So, now put that in a church setting, like you just don't want to be different. Like I just wanted to fit in and not cause anything.
Do you think your mom felt the need to whitewash with all the Islamophobia and just like this fear of Arab people?
Like for safety.
Yes.
Especially after 9/11.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Arabs and Iranians have been at war for they were at war for a long time. They're not now, in the sense of like we all just want liberation, for everyone. And I understand you're brown and I'm brown, so like I get it. But it's funny because people associate the Middle East as like all one thing, and that would be like saying like the Canada, US, and Mexico are all the same. And like I don't mind, but there are people that would not like that,
I think people don't realize, I'm very critical of the Western white evangelical church. And then people say, well, we're not a white church. We have people of different ethnicities and colors in our church, but we require those people to become white. I shouldn't say those people, but we require people in our community to assume white culture and truly believe white culture is the greatest supreme culture and is the godliest culture. And I don't think as white people, we're often aware how we require whiteness of our friends of color who come into the church. And it's something we need to become aware of.
Well, I mean,
I didn't know either. I didn't know that's what was, because I'm white. My skin color.
Yeah.
My brother and my sister are darker skinned than me, but I was like, I'm chill. I can play. I can be Kristina Hart on the internet and not Kristina Hartunian. That'll make it easier. I even had a book agent who is a deconstructed book agent, and she told me that if I go by Kristina Hart, I will sell more books than Kristina Hartunian.
Right.
And I do. It's honestly easier to go by Hart in general, but so I do it but it's just everywhere, kind of.
And you have guys like Bodie Bachman out there speaking, and people saying, "Look, we have a black friend," or and it's just it's horrifyingly racist white supremacy stuff.
And I mean, they clearly sucked Kanye into that, running around wearing, White Lives Matter shirts and things like that. Like,
oh my gosh.
It's absolutely insane. But I remember, Jess Eaton has been a guest on this podcast before, and she's incredible, makes really great anti-racist content on TikTok. And she talked about growing up in a predominantly white area in a predominantly white high school, and how her friends would just say things jokingly, like she didn't even think about at the time, like, oh, we're like a reverse Oreo, and just things like that, or, oh, you talk like, you sound so intelligent, and things like that, because she can code switch so easily. And so there's like this, it's this mentality of how we demand.
Katie! Sorry.
It's this mentality of how we like how we demand, like, if you're going to live in this country, you better speak English,
Right.
and things like that whole heart. And I cannot imagine how disheartening and how harmful that could be, to the fact where, like, you've got to think about how you brand yourself just to be able to sell things and to put things out into the
and
atmosphere.
I still struggle. Like, I'm still figuring it out because I've never really talked much about it. There's never been a reason to and that's why, like, I understand what they feel like in Iran, the women, because I've never seen like mainstream celebrities talk about the Iranian women and what they're doing in a positive way, being like, oh, I see myself in you, and I want your voice to be heard because what you're doing is so important and powerful. And that across the board, all of us Iranians, on like born here, born in our parents born in Iran, or born in Iran came here, it's the very new. We've never seen this, because in 79 there was the Iran hostage crisis, and so my parents, they immigrated here, but they said, my dad's an engineer, my mom's an accountant. My dad worked at McDonald's because he said it was the only place he could get hired, and because it was a stigma of like, these are bad people, rather than the government or the regime or the people in power and the mullahs. They are the ones that are enforcing things that people don't necessarily like. They definitely don't want, and they don't believe in, but they have to, because it's so dangerous to say anything. So that's why this revolution right now is just absolute. It's so powerful because we've never seen that before. And in church spaces and deconstruction spaces, and I will say, the one thing I have to say is deconstruction spaces do not give a lot of room for immigrants or children of immigrants, and I think it's because of evangelicalism and like how we were all taught. And so you guys bringing me on is like like I said, the only time I've ever been asked. And I feel like I don't necessarily connect a lot with deconstruction spaces because I'm not white, and my family is very Persian. Like, you go to my aunt's house, it is Persian. Like, we are liberal people, like, and yeah.
Well, and I'm of an age a little bit older than you other guys here, that I remember when Iran became the number one enemy of the United States, and we were allowed to hate Iranians particularly, and still to this day. And Donald Trump made them a whipping boy when President Obama was trying to rebuild relationship and draw Iran back into the world and into the world economic structure, and build friendship and relationship. And so it just has to be tough, I would expect, for you and your family to come from a place where we still feel we have permission, in particular, I think people of my age, to think of Iran as this really terrible place and really terrible people who just hate Americans because we're so good. Because we're so Christian, they hate us, and all of the silly perceptions we have.
Yeah. And it's like, my whole family are American citizens. So like, we are all just as American as you. Like, we're the same, but we're not the same. They're like, I'm sitting here because there are a lot of people who don't think we're the same. And Persians, like, the culture is so incredible. And I've lost my train of thought, but yeah. And I think that now people are getting to see that. And in LA, I mean, honestly, there's so many Persians everywhere. People know, like, you come over, we'll feed you, we'll take care of you. There in Persian culture, like, if an enemy comes to your door, and asks for food, you give it to him.
Mm-hmm.
That is like a core thing. So like feeding the poor, you do not leave a poor person behind. These are elements. So it's not even like liberal. It's just, these are core things to who I am and who we are. And that was just taught to me.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point about like people who are deconstruction, white people who have deconstructed.
Yeah.
It's also like so important that you're also decolonizing and like dismantling your own white supremacy. And I obviously, like, it's something like I constantly have to check too, because when you grow up and you're the privileged person, like, there's just so much ignorance, and we're taught such a fear-based faith too, where like everyone's the enemy. There was a comment earlier. Dear Christians podcast, shout out, said Kristina being connected to Iran, interested in her thoughts on Christians in the US that say they're being targeted and facing religious persecution. Like, I remember
it's my favorite thing to make fun of. That's why Sean Foy, I was like, I wrote a rap about him because I'm like, you are so dumb. I don't know what else to say at that point. I just was like, I so dislike you so much.
Yeah, like I remember growing up, and it was, I was told that I was going to be persecuted. Like it was just going to happen. Like, and I was prepared. I had my Bible going into public school.
I'm still kind of prepared. Like, it's still in my head, kind of, you know.
When you said you went back to Iran, is that right? And
no, I've never been, and I can't go. You like, it would be dangerous for me to go.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And neither of my parents went back since they left. My family does go, which presents difficulties in even talking about this. But yeah.
So what is your family perspective on what we're seeing with the women protesting right now, and these brave people in the street protesting this very oppressive government?
Yeah, it is extremely sad. Like, it is really sad because they are being just brutally. My cousin, she couldn't get over like videos of fathers dancing on their daughters' graves because they said they would dance at their wedding. Like, I would cry thinking about it. And they're fighting for just the things that you and we're also speaking out on, but like we don't have that, fear. But there's also a unity in just seeing people like protesting. There's never been protests. I've never seen the San Francisco Capitol lit up in Iranian colors. That was crazy. I've never seen so many people protest for Iranians. So it's just, we're all so baffled. I
love that. And I think it's important that we recognize, because I was brought up with an Islamophobia that Islam was evil and demonic. And then I read the Bible and like, wow, God made some pretty impressive promises over Ishmael. Maybe we have this wrong a little bit. And so historically and spiritually, I think Christians, even deconstructing ones, need to realize that some of what happens in the Middle East is our fault. We've been robbing oil from those people so we can have cheap gas for a long, long, long time, and doing really abusive things to do it. And spiritually, I don't think God hates Islamic people or Middle Easterners as much as we tend to think that he does. And I don't think he would be in agreement with our vision of how we interact with countries in the Middle East, just because we say, well, they hate Israel, so therefore we have to hate them. And I think it's time for us to start to rethink how we look at Middle Eastern politics and Middle Eastern people.
And they don't hate Israel. My mom was obsessed with Israel. A lot of Muslim Iranians, they are protesting an Islamic regime because they don't believe the same things, and any religious extremism is very dangerous. Yeah. And there's so many like Zoroastrians, Christians, Jewish, Persians, like Iranians there. So it's a lot more vast than people know.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to tell them.
One thing that you said to me earlier, and I think when we were texting about it, that I thought was really beautiful and profound was that the people are not the regime.
Mm-hmm.
When you were talking about your parents that they claimed asylum coming here, right?
Yeah.
Speak a little bit about their journey, because I know you mentioned that they experienced some racism, probably a lot of it when they came here, seeking asylum, being immigrants. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that revolution.
Yeah, it blows my mind. They went to Texas and then Mississippi. So, and I live in Nashville now, and I'm like, I went to Texas last weekend, and I'm like, wow, that is something, So they just couldn't get jobs. My aunt worked at Church's Chicken. My dad worked at McDonald's. My mom, I don't even remember. But they couldn't say they were from Iran because of what was going on at that time. So that's why I think Persians, or like immigrants in general, everybody bands together because it's the only way to succeed. There are different things. My dad was spit on a train once, like different things. But my dad has the most compassionate perspective. Like, he is like 53 million people voted for Trump. We need to get some of them to just see us as human, and you need to accept that is all you're going to get. And that's enough. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I'm just like, I'm like, okay. Yeah. So then so the regime and the people, it was all like, nobody understood that they're very different, and they had suffered so much in Iran, like so much real persecution. And so just like having having a job or the language or money in the currency, and the revolution changed the currency and different things. And then now seeing people on the streets protesting for Iranian citizens is he couldn't believe it. Yeah.
So let's talk about what's going on currently. I've been seeing some of the videos and the footage that's been coming out of schoolgirls protesting in school, in the streets. And I read, as of 2 days ago, I think the government had killed like 52 people, a lot of those being children. But it doesn't seem like they're slowing down. They're still protesting.
More, they just don't report it. Yeah,
I'm sure there's a lot more. But some of the footage, it's like so moving and inspirational and heartbreaking at the same time. Because I know, like, for me, like, being here in America, I feel helpless in knowing like how to help them. Like, they seem so far away, and it feels like such a different world. So, like, what would you say? Is there anything to do from over here? And then also, like, do you feel like there's hope for them? Like, do you think this could change things? Or I don't know. Do you
doing what you're doing is making a huge difference, and they just want people to validate that what is happening is happening. That is like the most basic but the most powerful thing, because even just getting people to do that feels like pulling teeth. Like, no one else in the deconstruction community that I know of has posted about it. I've seen like mainstream celebrities, or people in Canada or other countries, or I've seen people like different people. But as movement wise, I've seen a lot more conservatives post about it, which has been very weird. Like Marsha Blackburn, she posted and said, like, and obviously they have a different agenda, but there's something to be said that we're so invisible and we just want to be seen. And so anything like just sharing the Masa's like story, or this man wrote a song, and in the song I was saying, and he got imprisoned for the song because it went viral, and he's like, sing for my sisters, sing for the boy who wants to be a girl, sing for those who want to dance in public, sing for those who stole poor people's money, like stuff that is relatable. And so just sharing that on social media makes a huge difference, because it allows it to keep putting pressure for something to happen. And I want to say I hope something happens. I don't know, because this is like a regime that has been, however, there was a revolution before, and I've never seen this unification globally. So I've never had something in common with Marsha Blackburn. Ever. So I think, that makes a big difference.
You sort of alluded, sorry to, but you sort of alluded to this earlier. Do you see a parallel between religion taking over government in Iran and what we're seeing in America today with I saw MTG just came out with proud Christian nationalist T-shirts that she's selling now. Like they're embracing.
On that. So I was like, that was, first of all, like clip art. Nobody uses that anymore. It was so poorly made. And I was like, you can't even make a shirt.
Listen, just to like, well, she can't do a lot of things, like keep a marriage, and anyway. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, apparently she was hanging out with a sex guru multiple times. This is not her first rodeo.
We know what they would be saying if the Obamas got divorced, right?
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, people are just so disgusting about the Obamas anyway. Barack tweeted about their 30th anniversary and how much he loves Michelle and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, the transphobia directed at her and like all of this, it's insanity.
It's crazy. They had no scandal, and people are like,
none.
None.
Imagine being the first man of color to be president of the United States, and people hated him. Evangelicals hated him,
and I didn't know that. Isn't that wild?
That is
wild. Really,
because I wasn't like.
Let me rephrase that then. White evangelicals.
But it's
were scared to death.
I had a filter, I guess, because I wasn't.
But it's not because he's black,
in.
Jeremy. Not because he's black.
Yeah. Oh, of course not. And there's no way that it's because his name is Barack Hussein Obama. That doesn't sound scary.
Oh, they always love to throw in the middle name.
Hussein. Yeah.
They like say
Muslims are scary.
I know another Hussein, Saddam Hussein.
But I think as we're seeing these women protest, it's important for us to understand, like, this could happen in the United States. January 6th was an attempt to like overthrow our government.
Exactly.
And people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and others are trying to put Doug Mastriano, who's running for governor of Pennsylvania, they want to put Christianity, a religion, in charge of the government. And it leads to transphobic laws and Islamic phobic laws. And these things can happen in the United States if we're not diligent today.
Yeah. And my dad, so he was born in another country that had a oppressive regime. And he is like, absolutely, that if you have 53 million people voting for Trump and you have Trump spewing all this stuff, point
of order, 74 million.
74 million. Okay.
74 million.
And you have vulnerable, and the population group that he is speaking to is vulnerable. They probably don't know any better. And I can't blame them, because I could think like that if I was brainwashed too. But that is how Khomeini in 79 came into being. And then kind of no one expected it to be the regime that it became. And the mullahs that are in charge, they all have children who are in California who are not living under those laws for a reason, because they don't want them to. And so it's all hypocrisy and it's all bullshit. And so there's definitely a level of, okay, you are absolutely not going to trick me into thinking that you are right. for lack of a better word.
Yeah, and Douglas makes a great point. You know, we are seeing it continue to play out with an abusive, vile individual like Herschel Walker winning over an actual pastor, who coincidentally is the pastor of the same church that Martin Luther King Jr. was the pastor of. And so
and Dana Lash saying out loud, I want abortion to be banned, but rich people can go ahead and get abortions. It's fine if Herschel Walker pays for an abortion. I just don't want to allow anybody else to get an abortion.
Right.
It's absolutely wild.
That's because they would literally vote for Satan. If Satan,
they did
power.
74 million of them.
Yeah,
well, yeah, that's fair. But if like literally Satan, the Antichrist, whatever, ran as a Republican and promised them all of the things that they want to be in power, they would totally vote for him.
Yeah,
it would be no questions asked.
It's a power thing. It's like power. There's got to be. I watched this thing with Richard Pryor yesterday, and he was saying like anybody, you could not have power, and anyone who gets into power is very vulnerable to being corrupted. Being corrupted. And it's so true. It's like that's why I have such an anti-celebrity kind of like mindset with like anything remotely celebrity like, because I'm like, no, like we're all the same. We're all human beings. You and I are on the same playing field as anybody else. So let's like I just want to remember that, you know.
I think it reminds me a lot that, you know, I tell people all the time that communism looks incredible on paper. Like it looks absolutely amazing on paper. The only way it doesn't work is if there's somebody who's greedy and power hungry. And there's always someone who's greedy and power hungry. It goes to people's heads. And that's ultimately what happens. And then they live above the law. You know, but I think Trump is this catalyst of like what would have happened if Jesus had like, you know, fallen to temptation in the desert with the devil, you know, like Satan was offering all these worldly things and all the, you know, whatever. It's kind of it reminds me of Trump.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to say, and I was thinking about the hope piece, because I'm like, things are really batshit right now, if you look at it. But then at the same time, I'm seeing teenagers in this country say, like, protest these powerful men who will kill them, you know, and not give a shit and all stand together. And they are being heard worldwide. And if they can do it, then I sure as hell can be like, I don't like Trump. And if you know, we can find something else in common and be good to each other and find a way forward without you demonizing me. And I won't demonize you. Just like let's give each other a chance, because I feel like that's the only way.
I feel like I think I saw a stat that said the average age of the protesters was like 15.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Crazy.
Like, just the bravery.
I know. They just are like, we are done, you know? So I just want them to be heard. And I'm like, they are inspiring so many people. They're inspiring us. And like, they're sure as hell not going to be like a Marjorie Taylor Greene that is going to live up to whatever bullshit that she is trying to hide behind, because that's all going to come out at some point.
And I just want to, I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. And I'm like, oh shoot, I haven't made a video about Iran, and so I want to be attentive to that. And
people don't know, you know, that's
and particularly to the idea of like, I hate to be like Chicken Little and an alarmist, but I'm not convinced that in our lifetimes we're not going to have to find ways to transport women to get illegal abortions and get people to Canada who are under assault from our justice department, politicized justice department. I don't want to be an alarmist and scare people, but at the same time, I believe this election that's coming up in about a month and the one coming up in 2 years will very much determine if we're going to go that direction or not.
Yeah.
Well, it's okay because the rapture is going to happen in probably a couple weeks, so it doesn't matter. None
And
of
I
it.
definitely want to
This
trumpet
is
that out.
the
Trumpet that out to
persecution.
all my oh, that's not our church friends out there who are
Yeah.
our church isn't like that. We're good.
Not my
Christians.
church.
Yeah.
Not my
We're the
pastor.
good
Not my
Christians.
church. Like Brian Houston is the least of my problems. I was told my therapist, I was like, I think there's an element in me where I have to like, I was obviously born here, but I have like Iranian blood, and the women in my family line are pretty badass. And I'm like, going up against your dinky little church or Dave Ramsey or whatever it is,
Dave
I'm like,
Ramsey.
you are all punchlines, and I'm happy to make them because you are nothing compared to what my parents literally did to get me here, you know? So I got to do something.
We're standing against Sean Foyt.
Right.
How
we
can
call
you?
him
Can
Sean
you?
Foot?
Let me plug my computer in really fast. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
The battery.
I went to San Diego this summer, and I was looking to unplug from all the Christian nationalism chaos, you know, and whatever, and just kind of hang out for
Darker.
a little bit. And I ran across Sean Foyt on the beach.
Oh, was he doing
my
a rally
goodness.
or was he just
Yes.
out?
No,
Oh gosh,
he was playing
what a blessing!
and talking about
Yep.
how difficult it was for him to run for, you know, Congress in California, and what he was going to do, and how the Lord was just, you know, bringing him out of a season of fear, and, you know, whatever.
He's such a loser.
He's
Like, not to be like
know,
middle
I know.
school insult, but like
I used to try to be above, like, then they go low, we go high. And then I was like,
yeah.
no, I'm done. Like,
No, that doesn't work.
you are a loser, and I don't like you.
I
And
feel like
our staff brought him into our church. I think like in 2010, before he was Sean Foyt, the anti-vaxxer. And I met him then, and I told our staff, that guy's never coming back to our church. He will never be back. I knew he was crazy and off even then. And then
Hold
when
the
I
line.
hold on, my friend, I remember we
church.
went to like a worship thing like years ago at a Bethel thing, and he was doing it. And my friend, she walked out. I love her so much. She's like, why does he keep yelling? We can hear him. He has a mic. And that's the thing. I was always just like, this is mildly funny. All of it.
maybe
and by the way, Bethel Church does not claim him. But like,
I know that's bad. That's when
they
they
won't claim him. And my friends that go to Bethel, like, oh, he's never been on the Bethel worship team. He's not a Bethel guy. He moved to Reading to run for Congress. Because he thought he could win there with Bethel people. So he's a real
if
real
Bethel
nutball.
tries to distance themselves from you, it's real bad.
Yeah.
yes.
That's like your Marjorie Taylor Greene status.
Well, maybe the yelling comes from one of the spirits from the graves that he soaked.
Oh God. Yeah.
Maybe he got that
soaking.
spiritual gift from some laying on some
Grave
random person's
soaking,
grave.
not to be confused with soaking that the
Right.
Mormons do.
Or soaking that the Pentecostals do.
Wait, what's the Pentecostal soaking?
I soaked.
What? What does that mean? What does that mean?
Lay on the
like
floor. Yeah,
it's kind of like mindfulness, Christian mindfulness or something.
Oh,
isn't it?
wow. I was Pentecostal and I've never heard that term. Was that like being slain in the spirit and you just lay there?
kind of. It was Bethel-y. Yeah.
But Mormon soaking is the most disturbing of them all.
I got to hear about more.
I don't know what
do
it
you
is.
not know?
What is it?
Oh,
No.
I would love to
Yeah.
enlighten you.
Oh,
I learned
it's-
about this on TikTok from an ex-Mormon. But so what soaking is, so obviously if you're a Mormon or part of the LDS church, you are not allowed to have premarital sex, right? But they still have those hormones and desires.
Yep.
So they had this thought that if a male just puts it in but doesn't move, just kind of sits there, it doesn't count.
Because sex is the friction. It's not where the wiener is.
The best though is that there was a story of having a wingman, a third person that was just a friend that would come in and jump on the bed so that there would be motion, but they weren't doing it.
No.
Stop
Oh
it.
my goodness.
Oh,
You're
That-
kidding.
That's a
Who?
Mormon threesome.
That's my favorite
That's what that is.
thing
Mormon-
I
we
think I've
got-
ever learned.
gotta get a Mormon on here.
That is
about that.
hilarious. Oh my gosh.
That's
I have
wild.
I have no words.
Oh, Beecher. Okay, my spouse is in the comments saying that we're planning on soaking after the show. We're looking for a wingman. Shut up. Stop it, Beecher. We
This is
can
why
do the
sex
real thing now.
Education is important. Sex education is very important for Christians who just get married.
Wasn't
Oh my
that? I mean,
gosh.
didn't Bill Clinton believed that a blowjob was not adultery?
That didn't count either. That was
Like getting a
Well,
blowjob
no,
was
mouth
not
mouth
adultery.
soaking.
No, mouth.
Sorry, was that too?
He did not think it was sexual or count as count as adultery because he said that he did not receive a blowjob to completion. Now there's a blue
Oh,
dress
gosh.
that says otherwise, but
That is so misogynistic. That is still blaming her.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it's
Well, I
like,
didn't
you
finish,
gave me
so-
money, you didn't even do a good job, so it
Mm.
doesn't count.
Yeah.
Which, by
That
the
was a good
way,
impersonation.
Can we just
Hey,
I
if
did
if you're
not have sex with
Exmo
that woman.
listening, just to
not
make you
having-
feel better, I did know people. I knew people in evangelical spaces in high school and college that would not have sexual intercourse because they would not be virgins anymore. But the back door was a loophole.
Yeah.
So they'd do
Oh.
that because that didn't count either.
That's good for
Which
them.
totally
but
like
if-
erases gay people. So
Right.
But if
right.
I was going to say, if two men do that, that sends them to hell. But if
Right.
heteros do that without being married,
then it's a
doesn't- oh,
loophole and
geez.
they can just
No, yeah,
it's
that's such a
a-hole.
good point.
Oh, it's a-hole. I didn't
It's
mean to do
a-hole.
that. I didn't. That was too good. That was an accident.
I mean, this is how Christian Tom Cotton went to campaign for Herschel Walker the other day. I mean,
Jesus Christ,
the
Tom
hypocrisy of
Cotton.
these people is
He has such a punchable
beyond
face.
belief.
I hate everyone. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Can
Can you?
When
Christina, do you
Kanye
wanna
came
hear-
out with the White Lives Matter, I was like,
How can
like,
you?
that's it.
Yeah. How
I
can
don't
you
care.
convince though? Like that the whole thing is wild to me. I'm sorry. I'm stuck at what you were talking about, April.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, babe, I can't put it in because they'll think we're sinners, and so let me put it in your butt.
Why does this person sound like Bill Clinton?
I don't know,
It was
because
the-
we
it
were
was the
talking
same
about
accent.
Bill Clinton impersonations, and now I'm stuck on that.
No, I love it. My brother, who's gay, which is gonna make this joke, says, "Guess I'll die a virgin," off an evangelical technicality. Yeah,
That's true.
But it's like
Wow.
it's like Catholics who know they're going to go to hell for getting divorced. So one of
Mhm.
them is going to have to commit adultery so they can get a legal church divorce. I mean, just, these things create
It's
crazy
so
sin, don't they?
Well, maybe maybe they can just really ramp up the technicalities by doing the Mormon soaking, and then
Right.
maybe like you can help your spouse by being the bouncer, and then
just
everybody just kind of
being
gets to walk
simple.
away like awkwardly, like, well,
Oh,
Also,
That's
why
probably what
wouldn't-
Marjorie Taylor Greene did.
also,
Ooh.
well, no, apparently she was using a sex guru. Like this guy is like a professional.
Shocker.
Which I love the fact. Okay, can we just pause for a second? And I just have to say this: the fact that she was seeing a sex guru, right, which is this guy who enjoys the intimacy and the moments of sex with multiple partners and all of this kind of stuff. If this was a woman, she would have been a prostitute. Point
True.
blank. Period.
question.
Or as
for
Dana Lash
the-
says, a skank.
Also, why did he choose Marjorie? He could.
Did he choose? Yeah. Question for the purity cultured ignorant one here. What is a sex guru exactly?
So it's a prostitute, more or
But
less.
why is it? Why can he get away with that?
So the guru part is because it's like this mind, body, spirit thing. It's just basically a way to justify not calling him a prostitute. But
So it's legal?
yeah, because he wants to engage with partners, and sometimes they don't even complete the sex. Like they're just together.
Like
and
teaching
he's
her
They
sex.
just soak. They just have a time of soaking.
So she pays him for these lessons or these
He
experiences.
calls it marriage
Yes.
counseling.
Yes, it is. It's marriage counseling.
So why can't prostitutes just say they're sex gurus?
Exactly. You just, you're not branding yourself correctly. That's the
branding.
That's the thing. Yeah.
It's not
Yeah. It
even
has
a
nothing.
good
It has nothing to do with misogyny or anything like that.
Wait, is prostitute? What are they? Sex workers is the better term, right?
Right.
Now,
Yes.
Yes.
I'm still learning.
Yes.
Gotta unlearn all this stuff.
So I want to hear about being a Christian comedian, Kristina. What do you do in comedy? And
Well,
do you consider yourself a Christian comedian or what?
I mean, I did. No, I didn't actually. I
Okay.
had a very hard time calling myself a comedian. I just called myself a writer. And I would like host things and do stand up, and I would just be like, I'm a writer, because I felt like there were other people that were more prominent in that, and I had like I had imposter syndrome to be like, I'm a Christian and I'm a comedian. So I like was more, and I always like, I'm writing a book, and so I always was like, oh, I'm a writer. But I fell in love with performing comedy and telling stories, and so I'd be like, oh, I'm a storyteller. Now I'm like, okay, I'm a comedian. Like, I started calling myself that maybe like 2 years ago, and I'm like, that's okay to call myself a comedian, and I do that. And I am a Christian, but I think now I'm like, people know I'm a Christian, but my jokes and everything are so like vast, are becoming a lot more vast. So like I can make Persian jokes, or I can make cultural. I do a lot of news type of commentary, like late night. My dream is to be like a late night style host and to have shows like that and have guests and this and that, but not necessarily the Netflix special comedian.
Gotcha. And you just did a live show recently. It was like your first one in a while, right?
I did.
A comedy show
one since COVID, basically, like my first variety show, and it was awesome. My boss and like all the people from my job came, and then people from Instagram came, and then my friends came. So it was just like all my worlds colliding.
Nice.
And it was awesome. And then I had a friend, she did musical comedy, and she did a song about how men need to go to therapy.
That's true.
It was very funny. And then I had a musician play music. So it was awesome. And that's what I love. I want like not to be, I don't think the inner evangelical ever fully goes away. Like I just want a place people can come, like a community where they feel safe and accepted and laugh and have a good time and drink a beer or drink a Shirley Temple. And that's all I want. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Well, I think that's more church than a lot of our evangelical experience, at least in how it was intended. Where 2 or 3 are gathered.
Oh, Christian Weekend Update. Yeah, that was like my first. Sorry, I'm reading a comment. Persian Fulber.
I would love to watch a Christian Weekend Update.
I used to do those. That's how I started it was prior to the 2016, I forget, one of the elections, and I would do it was when all the scandals started happening, and I would just do like news commentary on them, and I called it Christian Weekend Update. And
nice.
Yeah.
It takes so much brilliance to do that, I think. And I think now I get a lot of my news, from the Daily Show, like what Jon Stewart started, and then Stephen Colbert's character, the conservative character he played, was so brilliant. And John Oliver now on this week last night or whatever it's called. I mean, you have to be really brilliant to be a great comedy writer and performer.
Really? I feel like April is brilliant, but April, you do that too. You do that's how I was like, Oh, she gets it. That's how I found you. Because I was like, oh, she's commenting too. But yeah, it is my favorite thing to do. So that's all I knew to do, I guess, because I was like, this is the only way for me to process what's going on. But when I watch late night comedy, I'm like, they're just smart, or their writers are smart too. Yeah, I love it.
Well, just
if
makes
anybody,
it easier.
if anybody hasn't seen Last Week Tonight with John Oliver,
He just did one on Iran. He just did one on Iran.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. Yeah, I did an interview like 2 weeks ago, and they were like,
because he's brilliantly funny, but so poignant, and you learn while you're laughing your ass off.
Yeah, and I think it just makes the really heavy, hard stuff a little more digestible. But and it's just religious trauma, or just the stuff in evangelicalism, some of it is traumatic and very heavy, and a lot of it is just really stupid. Being on this side of it, that's like, we should just laugh at this because it's too dumb to not laugh at.
Yeah.
Jon Stewart is awesome too.
Oh, that interview he did with the lieutenant governor of Arkansas, again, brilliant.
Oh yeah, about trans kids in medical care.
Oh, he sliced her up and made her so stupid.
When you're good, man, when they're good, they're so needed, because to talk about these things and then make it funny, right? It comes from tragedy. It's the way to make everyone be like, can we just maybe see what everyone thinks about this and talk about it? So
if you're ever looking for something good to watch, go on YouTube and search Jon Stewart when he used to go on Tucker Carlson's show on CNN, and Jon Stewart and Tucker Carlson would go head to head, or then he would do the stuff with Bill O'Reilly. And those are so fun to watch. And Jon Stewart was fantastic.
He is.
I heard a rumor somewhere that he might run for president. Or maybe it wasn't a rumor. Maybe it was someone that wanted him to run for president.
Yeah, I was a big.
They made
I don't
like
know.
a whole. They made a whole like big deal about that here a few years ago, and then
I feel like he'd be a good candidate, honestly.
You know, a lot of people are begging Dwayne Johnson to run.
Yeah, they are. I just see
like
that.
It's crazy.
Well,
Is he a Democrat or a Republican?
He's got to be Democrat, right?
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
I don't know if we can.
He's
say.
not a Kanye.
No,
actually, we don't know. It's like you never actually know.
Yeah, I don't think he really talks too much about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Buttigieg, but he just doesn't have a chance, does he? I mean, Pete is great. Every time he's on Fox News, he's
so great. Yeah.
So great.
I do love him. I think he might be a little. The weird thing is like he comes across like really just kind of plain and vanilla, but he's not. Like he's actually like he's gay. Like, but he just doesn't. I don't know.
If you could put the character, personality traits, everything of Pete Buttigieg in a Beto O'Rourke, you would have a perfect candidate.
I know.
Like, Beto's pretty close. I love Beto.
Well, but the problem is I think there are times that he gets way out over his skis, and he says probably more than he needs to. It's not that we don't all kind of have some. Yeah, I think the clarity and the wherewithal, the political wherewithal that Pete has would just absolutely be dynamite in a charismatic,
He's very likable too.
Yeah. And so you put those two together, you've got a perfect.
Beto was tap dancing backwards on his hell yeah, we're going to take your AR-15. He had to sort of tap dance.
Yeah, listen, you can think it. You can think it. You can mean it. You can want to do it. Just don't fucking say it out loud.
Right.
You know, it's like.
But I think that's part of the endearing. Like that's what people like about him, though. It's because he is passionate and like he comes across very genuine. Where a super poised candidate may not always come across that way.
Yeah, but that is the issue, though, right? Is that I think. Well, and you know what? I don't know.
It's also why everybody loved Bernie. He was passionate.
Well,
yeah.
Everyone, meaning who?
Yeah.
Well,
my daughter.
Why a lot of the Democrats?
Right, you're exactly. It's just kind of like I'm just thinking. I was like, man, I was in such a church space, and all I heard was like, Bernie, and then I go home and my dad and everyone would be like, yay, Bernie, and I'm like, I have whiplash.
It's so weird though. When I was in 2016, so in the primaries, I was still Republican, but I was a never Trumper. I will brag about that forever. But I remember thinking if it's Trump and he runs against Hillary, I'm going to vote third party because I still hadn't deconstructed, abortion and Hillary and all that stuff. Like hindsight, right? I would have changed it. But back then, if it would have been Trump versus Bernie, I would have voted for Bernie. Because I really liked him.
Oh, okay.
I
was like, I remember 2016 and I was with my friends and I just started the blog. I feel like maybe like I don't know yet. I forget. But I remember we were in shock, such shock. And now I look back and I'm like, there are a lot of people I know who voted for him who are now deconstructing. And I'm like, that must be really intense. I just think it would be really intense to like have to unlearn so much and learn so much in such a short period of time. So I have a lot of compassion because I'm like, you didn't know any better and you voted for Trump. Like, so you were taught a lot of things and I don't want to stigmatize everyone who votes for Trump because I do know people who are good people. And we have honest conversations, but I do think that on the deconstruction side, I can understand how intense that must be because I didn't have that,
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the guilt was strong for sure.
Yeah.
I wanted Cory Booker to be a better candidate so bad.
Yeah.
And he just fell so flat, and I don't know.
Oh, I love Tulsi Gabbard.
Don't do
now
that.
a Republican.
She is now a Republican.
I know. Shocker. We all knew Tulsi.
I mean, did you guys, were you told to hate AOC? Like the demonization of AOC.
They hate her.
They absolutely hate her.
And then when you realize, like I remember I realized how badass she was, and I was like, oh shit, they're gonna hate all of us. Like
an outspoken woman of color with an accent. Oh yeah, evangelicals are gonna hate that woman.
And she knows her scripture. There's been a few times she's brought up like Bible verses and made a case for her position biblically as from a Christian perspective, and just wiped the floor with knows her stuff. And I remember being like, dang, that girl got it.
I know. I feel like she'll run one day.
It's the problem of our country now that we're talking about The Rock or Jon Stewart being president, when really smart guys like Pete Buttigieg or Julian Castro or
Julian Castro,
some other can't have no chance to win whatsoever.
You know what though? You just wait. Trump's going to be reinstated. In fact, he's still the president right now.
And Biden is not alive, and it is a ghost.
It's like like deep fake.
I met somebody who believes that.
Oh yeah,
I knew her, and she was like, and I thought it was satire.
I know someone who
even
thought
worse. They believe Biden is responsible for high gas prices, but is not actually president. Donald Trump is. I'm like, how did that work?
I know someone who thought Queen Elizabeth actually died 2 years ago, and it's been a body double this whole time.
Like, why? What purpose does that serve?
I don't know. It goes with some prophecy. It was some QAnon thing. I'm pretty sure.
Prophecy.
The prophecies.
I can still remember to this day.
And JFK Jr. is still alive.
That one.
I'm triggered by this conversation because I remember the pea grabbing tape, and my wife and I were like, that has to do it. Now there's no chance.
Yes.
And you think that's the maddening thing.
Yes.
Because we keep getting to these points where you're like, this is surely where everyone will realize this person is brainwashing.
And I remember to this day, my prophetic friend, my prophet friend saying, no, God wants him to be president. He's going to win.
Crazy things. Kristina, we don't want to keep you too long. And I'm so thankful that you came on here and shared some of your story and told us about some Persian culture and all the things. Will you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yes, thank you so much. This was amazing. I really appreciate all of you very much. I am edgy Kristina Hart. I always feel silly now saying edgy Kristina Hart, but that happened because I came out years ago, was like, oh, like I believe women can be pastors, and someone was like, wow, you're so edgy. Like whenever I say something, it's like, wow, you're edgy, and I'm like,
You
these
did
are
drop.
basic. I'm saying very basic things.
Yeah.
You did drop a few F-bombs tonight, so
I did.
that's too much for a lot of evangelicals.
Edgy.
Yeah.
So edgy Kristina Hart, and then on Twitter and TikTok, I may be Kristina Hart, one of those. And then superweirdpod.com.
Yes, you also do a podcast. I was on your podcast.
You were on my podcast. I haven't done. It's been a lot going on, but we will get to season 2. Yes.
It was a good time. That was how I met you, I think.
Yes, we did. We had a great time. We had a lot of parallels.
Super weird pod.
Story. Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, everybody, thank you all for tuning in. Next week we will not be live because
the Dave Ramsey hate.
The Dave Ramsey hate account. How did you get blocked by Dave Ramsey? Just as a sidebar.
Someone randomly on the street was like, that's the girl blocked by Dave Ramsey. And I was like, I've made it. I called him the Grinch on Twitter after watching the Grinch on Christmas with my family. I was like, you know what reminds me of the Grinch? Dave Ramsey. And literally the next day, I was blocked.
That was it.
That's so anticlimactic.
I'm sorry. I know. That's how...
No, I mean, that's on
him.
Yeah,
how can he not handle just being called the Grinch? That's so much.
I know his assistant or whatever was like, no.
It's more like Ebenezer Scrooge, I think. Anyway.
Yeah, Grinch grew 3 hearts. I was like, that's a compliment.
Yeah.
Ebenezer Scrooge, but before the ghosts come and visit.
Oh,
like if the ghosts never come, he's like the 3 ghosts.
Yeah.
Humbug.
Thank you,
my favorite fact about Dave Ramsey is like the number of bankruptcies he's filed. So, let that sink in.
Nice.
Yeah, friends. All right. Becoming in today's villain, go join the ish community, evangelicalish.com. There's 3 support levels, really good for any budget. So you can be a false prophet, you can join the beast level, or you can join the antichrist level. Beast level and above gets to join the Zoom, the private Zoom we're doing once every 2 months ish. And so you can join that. And
it'll be at the same time during the live, 9 p.m. Eastern.
Yep. And so it's going to be on Wednesday, next Wednesday, a week from tonight. It'll be at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. on the East, and 7 p.m. If you are on Mountain Time. So absolutely come be a part of that. And don't forget, get some Evangelicalish merch, which, by the way, since since MTG has her Christian nationalism merch, you should go buy a Duck Christian nationalism hoodie.
With a little ducky.
Yeah,
with a duck.
Yes, and so you should go get one of those, or get yourself a real nice tumbler or a t-shirt. By the way, it's all Bella Canvas stuff, super soft, and so
lovely.
Anyway, ships right to your house.
And that's at evangelicalish.com, and click on the merch-ish link to get
merch-ish. Yeah.
So. All right, everybody. We will not see you next week, but we will be back the week after. And thank you again, Kristina.
Thank you guys.
Awesome.
Thanks, Kristina.
Go follow her. She's amazing.
Thank you guys. Love you.
All right.
We'll see y'all in 2 weeks.